Look around you. These towering granite monuments, carved from single blocks of stone and reaching 33 meters into the Ethiopian sky, are not Roman. They are not Greek. They are African. We stand in Aksum, a civilization so powerful it minted its own gold currency, so sophisticated it controlled trade routes from the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean, yet so forgotten that most history books barely mention its name. The mist of centuries has cleared. Welcome to the Kingdom of Aksum, Africa's forgotten superpower. Between the 1st and 7th centuries, right here in these highlands, a civilization emerged that would challenge Rome's dominance of the Red Sea, convert to Christianity before most of Europe, and erect engineering marvels that still stand after 1,700 years. These are not myths. These weathered stones, these ancient coins stamped with royal faces, these inscriptions in 3 languages, they are proof of a sophistication that rivals any ancient power. Over the next 8 episodes, we will journey through the complete story of this remarkable kingdom. We will witness its birth from the fusion of African and Arabian cultures 400 years before the Common Era. We will stand beside King Ezana as he converts his empire to Christianity in 330. We will walk through the bustling port of Adulis as merchants unload silk from India and frankincense from Arabia. We will watch King Caleb's armies cross the Red Sea to conquer Yemen at the height of Aksumite power. We will explore how farmers terraced these hills, how craftsmen carved these impossible monuments, how priests developed the Ge'ez script still used in Ethiopian churches today. But we will also witness the decline, the rise of Islam, the loss of trade routes, the environmental exhaustion, the slow abandonment of this great capital. And finally, we will discover how Aksum transformed into the Ethiopian Empire, preserving its Christian faith and cultural legacy into the modern age. This is not fragments of history. This is the complete arc of a civilization, from its origins to its lasting influence on the world. What you are about to see challenges everything you thought you knew about African history. These stones prove that technological brilliance, commercial sophistication, and political power flourished here, while much of Europe languished in fragmentation. By the end of this journey, you will understand not just what happened, but how an entire civilization rose from highland villages to control an empire spanning 3 continents. If you enjoy these complete journeys through lost civilizations, please subscribe. Each week, we unlock another forgotten world and tell its full story from beginning to end. Now, let us begin our journey at the very beginning, 4 centuries before the Common Era, when Arabian traders first crossed the Red Sea and encountered the peoples of these highlands. What happened next would change Africa forever. The Red Sea stretches between 2 worlds. Its waters a highway older than memory. Around 400 BCE, wooden vessels with square-rigged sails begin crossing from the Arabian coast, carrying merchants who speak a Semitic tongue and worship gods of sun and moon. They land at natural harbors along the African shore, where the coastal plain rises sharply into highlands that catch monsoon rains. Here, Cushitic-speaking peoples have cultivated the land for millennia, terracing hillsides to grow indigenous grains, herding cattle through seasonal pastures. The Sabaean traders do not conquer. They settle, intermarry, exchange. Their stone-working techniques merge with local building traditions. Their written script, angular letters carved into rock, begins recording a new language that blends Semitic vocabulary with African grammatical structures. This Proto-Ge'ez becomes the tongue of commerce, administration, eventually liturgy. At Yeha, 70 kilometers from where Aksum will rise, masons construct a temple using dressed limestone blocks fitted without mortar. The walls stand 12 meters high, each stone cut with precision that will endure 24 centuries. Sabaean inscriptions dedicate the structure to Al-Maka, god of irrigation and fertility. Yet the agricultural knowledge being applied to surrounding fields comes from generations of African farmers who understand these soils, these rains, these elevation gradients. The port of Adulis emerges on the western Red Sea coast as the critical node connecting these highlands to maritime trade networks. Ships arrive carrying olive oil and wine from Mediterranean ports, frankincense from Punt, textiles from India. They depart loaded with ivory from the interior, obsidian from highland quarries, animal hides, gold dust panned from rivers. Adulis becomes more than a harbor. It transforms into a cultural laboratory where African, Arabian, and Mediterranean influences fuse. By 100 CE, settlements dot the highland plateau. Stone foundations support timber and thatch structures. Terraced fields climb hillsides in geometric precision. Stone walls holding soil against erosion, while channels direct water from springs to crops. The fusion culture has developed its own character, neither purely Sabaean nor Cushitic, but something unprecedented. Trade routes extend inland from Adulis, following river valleys into the highlands, where a town called Aksum begins consolidating power over neighboring settlements. The Proto-Ge'ez script evolves, its characters becoming more angular, more suited to carving into the local grey granite. Inscriptions record land grants, commercial agreements, dedications to deities both imported and indigenous. A hybrid aristocracy emerges, families who control both agricultural land and trade connections, who speak multiple languages, who navigate between cultural worlds with practiced ease. This is not yet a kingdom. No single ruler commands absolute authority. But the infrastructure of empire is forming. The trade networks, the agricultural surplus, the cultural synthesis, the strategic location. The highlands offer defensible terrain and reliable rainfall. The coast provides access to the world's richest trade routes. Between these two zones, something powerful is germinating, waiting for the right conditions to transform scattered settlements into a civilization that will mint its own gold and challenge Rome's commercial dominance. The crossroads has been established. Now it needs only kings. The first king, whose name survives in stone, ruled sometime after 100 CE, though the exact date dissolves into uncertainty. What remains certain is the transformation he represents, the shift from distributed power to centralized authority, from trading settlements to a kingdom with Aksum as its beating heart. The city rises in a highland valley where multiple trade routes converge, 2,200 meters above sea level, where the air is thin and clear and the soil still rich with volcanic minerals. The early kings understand that power flows from control of commodities the world cannot produce elsewhere. Frankincense and myrrh grow only in specific microclimates. The arid slopes where Somalia meets the highlands, where particular Boswellia and Commiphora trees yield aromatic resins worth more than their weight in grain. Roman temples consume tons of frankincense annually. Egyptian embalmers require myrrh for mummification. Persian fire altars burn these resins continuously. The Aksumite kings position themselves as gatekeepers of this sacred smoke, taxing caravans that carry the precious gums from interior groves to coastal ports. Around the royal compounds, the first monumental stelae begin to rise. not yet the giants of later centuries, but impressive nonetheless. 10 to 15 meters tall, carved from single blocks of grey granite quarried from nearby hillsides. Teams of workers shape the stone with bronze tools, creating false doors and windows that suggest multi-story buildings rendered in permanent rock. These are not mere monuments, but statements of permanence, declarations that this power will outlast wood and mud brick, that these kings intend to be remembered. The palace complexes sprawl across terraced platforms, their foundations of dressed stone supporting walls of timber and packed earth. Courtyards paved with flat stones lead to throne rooms where polished basalt seats bear the weight of authority. Storage chambers fill with tribute. Elephant ivory from the western lowlands, gold dust from rivers beyond the Blue Nile, leopard skins, rhinoceros horn, tortoise shell. A royal bureaucracy emerges to manage this wealth. Scribes who keep accounts in early Ge'ez script, officials who oversee tax collection and trade regulation. The tombs of these early kings lie beneath stone-lined chambers, their bodies accompanied by bronze vessels, ceramic jars of wine and oil, jewelry of gold and carnelian. Above ground, the stelae mark their resting places, ensuring that even in death they tower over the living. The kingdom is not yet minting coins, not yet Christian, not yet the regional superpower it will become. But the architecture of empire is solidifying. The capital city, the monumental stone, the bureaucratic apparatus, the control of trade that connects 3 continents. The kings have risen, and they are building in granite to ensure the world will not forget. Around 270 CE, something unprecedented occurs in the highlands. King Endubis, whose face will soon appear on metal discs that travel from the Nile to the Ganges, orders the establishment of royal mints. The decision represents more than economic policy. It is a declaration of sovereignty, a statement that Aksum stands equal to Rome, equal to Persia, equal to any power that stamps its authority into precious metal. The minting workshops occupy stone buildings near the palace complex, their locations chosen for security and proximity to the royal treasury. Inside, craftsmen work with techniques learned from Roman and Greek predecessors, but adapted to Aksumite purposes. Gold arrives as raw nuggets from mines in the southern territories, as dust panned from the highland streams, as melted jewelry and trade goods. Silver comes through Red Sea commerce, bronze from local copper deposits mixed with imported tin. The process begins with fire, crucibles of clay heat over charcoal flames until metal liquefies, impurities rising as slag to be skimmed away. The molten gold pours into molds, forming blank discs called flans. Each flan is weighed against standard measures, adjusted to precise specifications. The gold coins heaviest, matching Roman aurae in weight and purity, the silver pieces lighter, the bronze smallest but still substantial enough to feel real in a merchant's palm. The striking occurs on stone anvils. A flan rests between 2 iron dies, one fixed below, one held above. The lower die bears the king's portrait in intaglio, Endubis shown in profile, wearing the royal headcloth, his features idealized but recognizable. The upper die carries inscriptions in Greek around the rim, Ge'ez at the center, sometimes a cross or crescent depending on the reign. A single hammer blow transfers the design, metal flowing into every carved line, transforming blank disc into currency that speaks with royal voice. The inscriptions matter as much as the metal. Greek serves international commerce, the language of Mediterranean trade, the that Roman merchants and Egyptian bankers read without translation. Gaius addresses local populations, asserting that this is not merely imported Roman currency, but something distinctly Aksumite. The dual script system reflects the kingdom's position between worlds, African in geography, Semitic in language, Hellenistic in commercial culture. The coins circulate immediately. Gold pieces pay for bulk shipments of silk from India, for frankincense from Somali territories, for diplomatic gifts to Byzantine emperors. Silver coins facilitate regional trade. A merchant in Adulis exchanging them for ivory, a farmer in the highlands receiving them as payment for grain delivered to royal storehouses. Bronze serves daily transactions in urban markets, the small change of bread purchases and pottery sales. The treasury system expands to manage this new monetary economy. Scribes record coin production in ledgers, tracking weights and denominations. Tax collectors now demand payment in standardized currency rather than goods alone, simplifying administration across territories where barley has different values than cattle, where frankincense cannot easily be divided. The coins become instruments of centralization, pulling diverse regions into a unified economic system centered on the capital. By 300 CE, Aksumite coins reach extraordinary distances. Archaeological excavations recover them from sites in southern India, from Red Sea ports in Arabia, from markets in Roman Egypt. A gold coin of King Endubis, found in a South Indian pepper warehouse, testifies to trade networks spanning the Indian Ocean. The currency proves the kingdom's integration into global commerce, its acceptance by merchants who trust Aksumite gold as readily as Roman. The minting continues through successive reigns, each king stamping his own portrait, adjusting inscriptions, sometimes adding Christian symbols after the conversion that approaches in the next generation. For 4 centuries, the workshops produce coins, their output rising and falling with the kingdom's fortunes, but never ceasing entirely until the 7th century brings disruptions that even gold cannot overcome. Around 330 CE in the Highland capital, a transformation begins that will reshape the kingdom's identity for 17 centuries. King Ezana, whose early coins bear images of the crescent moon and disk inherited from ancestral Sabaean traditions, encounters Syrian merchants who speak of a crucified God risen from death. The exact circumstances remain obscured, perhaps the influence of Frumentius, a Syrian Christian shipwrecked on Aksumite shores as a youth, raised in the royal court, later ordained bishop by Athanasius of Alexandria. What survives is not the story of conversion, but its material evidence. Coins that suddenly replace lunar crescents with crosses, inscriptions invoking the Christian God, churches rising where temples once stood. The king's trilingual inscription at Aksum, carved in Ge'ez, Sabaean, and Greek, announces military victory over rebellious peoples to the south, but its opening invocation marks the revolution. Quote 0, the pagan formulas vanish. The stone records Ezana's conquest of Meroe around 350 CE, the ancient Kushite kingdom on the Nile, its pyramids already centuries old when Aksumite armies arrive. The campaign extends Aksumite control westward to the Nile Valley, securing trade routes and demonstrating the new faith's compatibility with imperial expansion. The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion rises in the capital's heart, its foundation stones laid during Ezana's reign. The structure follows basilica plans imported from the Mediterranean: rectangular hall, timber roof supported by stone columns, eastern apse oriented toward Jerusalem. Local masons adapt the form, incorporating dressed granite blocks fitted without mortar, techniques refined through generations of stelae construction. The church becomes the kingdom's spiritual center, housing what tradition claims is the Ark of the Covenant, though 4th century sources remain silent on this later legend. Baptismal pools appear in elite compounds, rectangular basins cut into bedrock, their steps descending into water blessed by priests trained in Alexandrian theology. The kingdom aligns itself with Byzantine Christianity, entering diplomatic correspondence with Constantinople. Aksumite merchants in Roman ports now share faith with their trading partners, easing negotiations, opening doors previously closed. The conversion proves strategically astute. Christian Aksum becomes Byzantium's ally against Zoroastrian Persia, its position on the Red Sea vital to Byzantine interests in controlling Eastern trade. Yet the old ways persist beneath the cross. Farmers still pour libations to earth spirits before planting. Stelae construction continues, though new monuments sometimes bear Christian symbols. The kingdom's Christianity develops its own character, blending Mediterranean theology with Highland traditions, creating what will become the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Ge'ez evolves into a liturgical language, manuscripts copied on vellum preserving Gospels and Psalms in script derived from Sabaean ancestors. The transformation occurs within a single generation, yet its effects ripple forward through centuries. When Ezana's coins circulate through Red Sea ports, their crosses announce a Christian kingdom in Africa's highlands, a civilization that chose the faith before most of Europe, that will maintain it through Islamic expansion, through centuries of isolation, into the present age. The 4th century closes with Aksum commanding trade routes that stretch from the Nile cataracts to the Malabar coast. What began as control of frankincense paths has expanded into something unprecedented, a highland kingdom that dominates an entire sea. The Red Sea becomes an Aksumite lake, its ports answering to kings who mint gold in mountain capitals far from any coastline. Around 400 CE, construction begins on monuments that will define the kingdom's ambition. In the stelae fields north of the palace district, workers quarry granite blocks of unprecedented size. The stone comes from hills several kilometers distant, each obelisk carved from a single piece of bedrock. Teams of laborers shape the granite with iron tools, creating false doors and windows that mimic multi-story buildings. The largest reaches 33 meters towards the highland sky, weighing 520 tons. Its surface bears carvings of wooden beams and doorways, a stone representation of palatial architecture. The engineering required to move such mass from quarry to capital, to raise it vertical without modern machinery, demonstrates technical sophistication matching any Mediterranean civilization. The palace complexes expand across terraced hillsides. Dressed stone walls rise in courses, their joints fitted without mortar. Wooden beams support ceilings in throne rooms where Byzantine ambassadors present silk and wine. The floors are paved with fitted stone, courtyards open to mountain air. In these spaces, kings receive tribute from conquered territories and negotiate with Persian merchants. The architecture speaks of permanence, of a dynasty expecting centuries of rule. Around 520 CE, King Caleb faces a crisis across the Red Sea. In Himyar, the southern Arabian kingdom that controls Yemen's frankincense ports, a Jewish king named Du-Nuwas persecutes Christian communities. Byzantine Emperor Justin I appeals to Caleb, seeking intervention to protect co-religionists. The request aligns with Aksumite commercial interests. Yemen's ports are critical nodes in Indian Ocean trade. Caleb assembles a fleet at Adulis. Aksumite vessels, built with techniques learned from Red Sea sailors, carry troops across the strait. The campaign succeeds. Himyar falls to Aksumite forces, and for the next half-century, Yemen becomes an Aksumite province. The kingdom now controls both Red Sea coasts, its authority extending from the Ethiopian highlands to the Arabian Peninsula. Trade goods flow through ports answering to a single power. Indian pepper and Chinese silk pass through Aksumite customs houses. Gold coins minted in Aksum circulate in markets from Alexandria to Muziris. The capital's population reaches 20,000, making it among the largest cities in sub-Saharan Africa. The urban center spreads across multiple hills, residential quarters surrounding the monumental core. Merchants from Byzantium, Persia, and India maintain houses near the market districts. Ge'ez inscriptions on public buildings proclaim royal victories and divine favor. The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion receives endowments of land and treasure, yet the Golden Age contains the seeds of future vulnerability. The kingdom's wealth depends entirely on controlling trade routes that pass through territories it does not directly govern. The agricultural base, though sophisticated, strains to support urban populations and military campaigns. The soil of intensively farmed terraces begins showing signs of exhaustion. But in the early 6th century, these concerns remain distant shadows. Aksum stands at its apex, a Christian kingdom in highland Africa commanding an empire that spans seas. Dawn breaks over terraced hillsides where stone-lined channels guide water from highland springs to fields of teff and barley. The irrigation system, built over generations, transforms steep slopes into productive farmland through engineering that rivals anything in the Mediterranean world. Farmers check the flow through ceramic pipes, adjusting wooden gates that direct water to different terraces according to schedules maintained by village councils. The grain that feeds Aksum's 20,000 inhabitants grows on these stepped fields, each terrace supported by dry stone walls that prevent erosion and maximize arable land. In the capital's pottery quarter, workshops cluster near clay deposits. Potters shape vessels on wheels turned by apprentices, their hands forming storage jars, cooking pots, and fine serving dishes. The kilns burn acacia wood, reaching temperatures that produce the distinctive red-brown ceramics found throughout the kingdom. Nearby, metalworkers hammer bronze into ceremonial vessels and iron into agricultural tools. The sound of hammering on anvils echoes through narrow streets where stone houses press close together. The weekly market fills the open space near the stelae fields. Merchants from the countryside arrive before sunrise, laying out produce on woven mats, vegetables, honey, butter wrapped in leaves, dried fish from the Red Sea. Urban craftspeople display textiles woven from cotton and wool, leather goods, baskets, wooden furniture. Transactions occur in bronze coins for small purchases, silver for larger ones. A merchant weighing frankincense resin uses bronze balance scales, their arms decorated with geometric patterns. The market operates under royal supervision, with officials ensuring standard weights and collecting taxes in kind. Social hierarchy manifests in architecture and dress. Noble families occupy stone palaces with multiple courtyards, their walls decorated with carved friezes. Wooden ceilings rest on dressed stone pillars. Merchants live in smaller stone houses clustered near commercial districts. Farmers inhabit circular thatched dwellings in rural villages, their walls made from stone and mud. Nobles wear fine linen robes imported from Egypt, jewelry of gold and carnelian. Merchants dress in locally woven cotton. Farmers work in simple tunics, their hands calloused from agricultural labor. Religious life structures the calendar. The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion conducts services in Ge'ez, the liturgical language that also serves administrative functions. Priests in white robes chant prayers, while incense smoke rises from bronze thuribles. Festivals mark the agricultural cycle. Planting ceremonies in spring, harvest celebrations in autumn. Christian holy days blend with older highland traditions, creating a religious culture unique to Aksum. Monasteries in the surrounding hills preserve manuscripts on vellum, their pages filled with Ge'ez script and illuminated crosses. The rhythm of daily life reflects a civilization at its peak, yet dependent on systems that require constant maintenance. The irrigation channels need annual clearing. The terraces demand continuous repair. The trade networks that bring wealth require political stability across vast distances. In workshops and fields, markets and churches, the kingdom's prosperity rests on the coordinated labor of thousands, each performing roles within a complex social structure that has evolved over 4 centuries. The 7th century arrives with changes that begin beyond the highlands, in deserts and coastal cities where new forces gather momentum. In 630 CE, a religious movement emerges from the Arabian Peninsula, spreading with remarkable speed across territories that have long served as Aksum's trading partners. Within 12 years, Arab armies control Egypt, severing the kingdom's northern commercial connections. The port of Adulis, which for 5 centuries has channeled goods between Mediterranean and Indian Ocean worlds, finds its role diminishing as new powers redirect maritime trade through Persian Gulf routes. The loss manifests gradually in the highland capital. Fewer caravans arrive from the north. The coins minted after 640 CE grow scarcer, their gold content reduced, their production eventually ceasing altogether. In workshops where craftsmen once shaped imported materials into luxury goods, the supply of raw silk and fine glassware dwindles. The terraced fields continue producing teff and barley, but the international commerce that transformed agricultural surplus into wealth contracts year by year. Across the Red Sea, territories that Aksumite kings once governed slip from control. The Yemeni highlands, conquered by King Caleb a century earlier, acknowledge different authority now. Without access to both coasts, the kingdom's strategic position erodes. Ships that once sailed under Aksumite protection follow new routes, their captains negotiating with different port officials, their cargoes enriching distant treasuries. The stelae fields stand unchanged, their granite surfaces weathering slowly under highland sun and rain. No new monuments rise to match the towering obelisks of earlier centuries. The engineering knowledge remains, the stone quarries still accessible, but the resources and political will that once mobilized hundreds of workers for such projects have diminished. The great structures become markers of a receding past rather than expressions of present power. Environmental pressures compound commercial isolation. 4 centuries of intensive agriculture have depleted highland soils despite terracing and irrigation. Fields that once yielded abundant harvests require more labor for diminishing returns. The stone-lined channels still guide water from springs, but erosion has damaged sections that go unrepaired. The population that the land supported during prosperity cannot be sustained as easily when trade wealth no longer supplements agricultural production. The city contracts slowly. Outlying neighborhoods show signs of abandonment first, roofs left unrepaired, walls crumbling, courtyards returning to grass. The core around the stelae and palace complexes remains inhabited, but the urban density decreases. Families relocate to rural areas where subsistence farming offers more security than diminished urban commerce. The weekly markets continue, though with fewer exotic goods and smaller crowds. Christianity endures as the kingdom's faith, the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion maintaining its rituals and manuscript traditions. Monasteries in surrounding hills preserve Ge'ez texts, their scriptoria producing fewer illuminated pages, but continuing the linguistic heritage. The religion that King Ezana adopted 3 centuries earlier provides cultural continuity, even as political and economic structures weaken. By 800 CE, the kingdom that once commanded Red Sea trade survives as a regional power, its influence confined to the immediate highlands. The mechanisms of decline, commercial isolation, environmental degradation, territorial loss, operate across generations, each decade bringing incremental reduction rather than dramatic collapse. The stelae stand as silent witnesses to transformation, their carved surfaces recording an empire's confidence while the world around them shifts toward an uncertain future. Around 940 CE, the last royal court departs the highland capital. The decision unfolds across years rather than days. First, the treasury moves southward, then administrative records, finally the symbols of kingship themselves. The stelae fields remain, their granite surfaces weathering under highland rains, but the palace is empty and the great church loses its political centrality. Power relocates to more defensible positions deeper in the mountains, where new dynasties will emerge from the kingdom's transformed remnants. The Zagwe dynasty, established by the 11th century, inherits Aksum's Christian identity while abandoning its commercial ambitions. In the 12th and 13th centuries, King Lalibela commissions churches carved directly from living rock, 11 structures hewn downward into volcanic tuff, their exteriors formed by excavating the surrounding stone. The architecture references Aksumite building traditions, dressed stone surfaces, geometric precision, crosses carved in relief. Yet the method represents fundamental shift. Instead of raising monuments skyward like the ancient stelae, these sanctuaries descend into earth as if the civilization itself burrows inward, turning from external trade toward internal spiritual focus. Ge'ez, which once appeared on gold coins circulating to India, survives as liturgical language. Monastery scriptoria in Tigray and Amhara regions continue copying religious texts on vellum, their illuminated manuscripts preserving the script's distinctive characters. The language no longer serves commerce or diplomacy, but its grammatical structures and vocabulary remain frozen in sacred contexts, recited daily in Orthodox liturgies across the highlands. Modern Amharic and Tigrinya evolve from Ge'ez roots, carrying linguistic DNA forward through 40 generations. The Ethiopian Empire that consolidates by the 14th century claims direct descent from Aksumite kings, constructing genealogies linking medieval rulers to Ezana and his predecessors. Whether historically accurate or politically expedient, these narratives establish continuity, asserting that the Highland Christian kingdom never truly fell, but merely relocated and adapted. The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion, rebuilt multiple times on its 4th century foundations, remains the symbolic heart of Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity. By the 20th century, the abandoned capital becomes archaeological site. Italian occupation forces remove the great obelisk in 1937, transporting the 160-ton monument to Rome, where it stands until 2005, when international pressure secures its return. UNESCO designates the stelae fields World Heritage Site in 1980. Excavations reveal palace foundations, coin hoards, pottery workshops, material evidence of the civilization described in fragmentary texts. The kingdom's legacy persists in unexpected forms: architectural techniques visible in rock-hewn churches, agricultural terracing patterns still used by highland farmers, religious festivals maintaining rhythms established 15 centuries ago. Aksum proved African civilizations could achieve technological sophistication, commercial dominance, and political complexity equal to Mediterranean or Asian powers. A narrative long obscured, but gradually recovering through archaeological discovery and historical reassessment. The stelae stand today as they stood when the last king departed, their carved false doors leading nowhere, their granite surfaces holding memories of an empire that commanded seas and minted gold, then faded into highland mists, leaving only stone and faith behind. Thank you for joining this journey through Aksum's remarkable story. Subscribe to explore more forgotten civilizations that shaped our world in ways history too often overlooks.